Welcome to IFO Classroom Season 4. In this season, we'll bring to you classes from the top university in Wales, the land of the dragons. In this season, we will have Cardiff University, University of South Wales, Cardiff Metropolitan University, Bangor University, Glendale University, Swansea University, University of Wales, Trinity St. David, and Aberystwyth University. In this season of IFO Classroom, we together will study so many different subjects, from design to marketing to even AI and so much more. If you are interested in studying in Wales or simply just want to experience the classroom abroad, tune in at 8 p.m. every Tuesday on IFO Facebook and YouTube. And right now, live from Wales.
Hi! Welcome back to IFO Classroom live from Wales. Have you ever come across a newspaper store with a lot of different newspapers and magazines, but you decided to pick up this one particular newspaper to try reading? What are the factors that make you want to choose this one instead of many other ones? Is it the cover characters, or the title, the content, the layout, the colors, or are there any other factors? If you share the same question as me, then be prepared to join our very special class today, International Journalism from Cardiff University, Wales. Now, let's live from Wales. Hello, xin chào tất cả các bạn. Chào mừng các bạn đã quay trở lại với IFO Classroom live from Wales. Và trong IFO Classroom phiên bản hoàn toàn mới của năm 2022 thì chúng ta sẽ cùng được trải nghiệm các lớp học trực tuyến vô cùng xịn sò đến từ các trường đại học hàng đầu của xứ Wales. Chúng ta sẽ cùng nhau học 8 môn học khác nhau. Không chỉ các bạn học sinh đang có mặt ở trong lớp học mà tất cả các bạn khán giả livestream chúng ta sẽ được tương tác trực tiếp với các trường đại học hàng đầu của xứ Wales, Vương quốc Anh. Thế nên là các bạn đừng ngại đặt cho chúng mình thật là nhiều câu hỏi và tương tác thật nhiệt tình để chúng ta có những giờ học thật là sôi nổi và thú vị nha. Và các bạn ơi, bây giờ để có thể giới thiệu cho các bạn về chủ đề của tiết học thứ 6 của IFO Classroom Live from Wales thì chúng ta hãy cùng tưởng tượng, chúng ta hãy cùng nhớ lại. Các bạn đã từng có một cái trải nghiệm là mình đi dạo trên phố này, mình đi ngang qua một cái sạp báo nhỏ, hoặc là mình đang đọc một trang báo điện tử, mình đang lướt qua các bài báo ở một trang báo điện tử, và giữa rất là nhiều tờ báo ở trên sạp báo và giữa rất nhiều bài báo ở trên trang báo điện tử thì các bạn lại quyết định đọc thử một tờ báo nhất định, nghĩa là các bạn chọn đúng một cái tờ báo đấy thôi chứ không chọn những cái tờ báo khác á. Thì các bạn có bao giờ tự hỏi là cái điều gì đã khiến cho mình chọn cái tờ báo đấy mà không phải là những tờ báo khác? Cái điều gì đã khiến cho mình click vào muốn đọc thử cái mẩu tin đó thay vì rất là nhiều mẩu tin khác ở trên trang báo điện tử? Có thể là yếu tố về nội dung, hay là về nhân vật trang bìa, hay là về cách bài trí, hay là về màu sắc, hay là còn những yếu tố nào khác nữa. Nếu mà các bạn cũng có cùng mối tò mò với mình như vậy thì mình chắc chắn là cái buổi học về báo chí ngày hôm nay sẽ khiến cho các bạn rất là hứng thú. Và các bạn ơi, trong buổi học thứ 6 của IFO Classroom Live from Wales thì chúng ta sẽ cùng chào đón thầy Matt Swaine đến từ Đại học Cardiff của xứ Wales. Mình cũng muốn cung cấp thêm cho các bạn một xíu thông tin rất là thú vị về trường Đại học Cardiff của xứ Wales. Trường Đại học Cardiff thì nằm ngay trong khu trung tâm của thành phố sầm uất và đáng sống nhất Vương quốc Anh, thành phố Cardiff, thủ đô của xứ Wales. Nơi đây thì còn được bình chọn là một trong 10 trường đại học đẹp nhất của Vương quốc Anh vào năm 2018. Và trường Cardiff thì còn thuộc Russell Group, và việc mà trường đại học được ở trong Russell Group có nghĩa là đây giống như là một bảo chứng cho chất lượng giảng dạy của trường đại học Cardiff. Trường thì cung cấp hơn 350 khóa học khác nhau, đáp ứng mọi nhu cầu và nguyện vọng của các sinh viên đến từ hơn 130 quốc gia trên toàn thế giới. Và thông tin cuối cùng cũng là thông tin mà mình nghĩ là rất là thú vị và các bạn nghe xong thì sẽ thấy vui và cực kỳ háo hức với buổi học ngày hôm nay. Đó chính là cái môn học mà chúng ta chuẩn bị học, môn journalism, môn báo chí á, thì chính là môn học thế mạnh của trường Cardiff xứ Wales. Bởi vì khoa báo chí, truyền thông và văn hóa của trường đại học Cardiff thì được xếp thứ 25 trên thế giới về chất lượng giảng dạy theo QA World Rankings vào năm 2019. Thế nên là các bạn hãy chuẩn bị thật là sẵn sàng để chúng ta chuẩn bị được trải nghiệm 1 giờ học đạt đẳng cấp top 25 thế giới về ngành báo chí, truyền thông và văn hóa nha.
Hello everyone, my name is Matt Swaine. I'm currently the course director for the MA Journalism at Cardiff University. I continue to work as a freelance writer and editorial consultant for a range of businesses. So I'm always having to come up with feature ideas and develop ideas for other people. And I love coming up with ideas. It's one of the things I enjoy most about being a magazine person. We've been teaching journalism for over 50 years at Cardiff. In fact, it's the oldest journalism training school in the UK and one of the top journalism training colleges certainly in the UK and also in the world. So this is my book, Matt Swaine. It's called Writing for Journalists. You may be able to find it in your library, if university library. And this sets out my approach to teaching on the course, on the IJ. And today's lesson actually comes from chapter 6 in here. And this is a lesson, as I say, I run with students, but I also run the session that we are going to do today with professional journalists and magazine teams. So you may look at some of this and think, this is a bit silly, but this is all about getting people to think about really good feature ideas. So it's a good way of doing it. Just to give you a sense of my background, here are some of the magazines I've worked for: BBC Wildlife Trail. I've launched 2 magazines, Outdoor Fitness and Trail Running, and I've worked for a host of others: music magazines, guitar, travel, helped launch BBC Earth, written for The Guardian, and worked for Lonely Planet as well. And there we can see, I'm showing off now, that's all I'm doing. This is my old magazine, it's about walking up mountains, and it's very popular in Britain. And as you can see, that's me on the cover. That's me there, and that's me there as well. So that's one of the things I used to do. And that's why, part of the reason why I love journalism is it takes you to places. It helps you meet people and find things out. And if you are an inquisitive person, that's probably something that you might be interested in doing too. And again, I just want to give you a sense of the places that journalism can take you. So for me, I am really interested in nature and the outdoors. So a lot of my journalism tends to be about science, conservation, and things outdoors. And I love it for that reason. I've had a really great journalism career because of that. So I write a lot about butterflies because I love butterflies. This is me. It's a place in Britain. It's quite a famous location. This is me writing about birdsong. This is me finding out about marine wildlife. Going on hunts for owls, learning to make my own map. That's me and my son, and this is a map that I drew, but it's learning to learn about the outdoors and make maps. So those are the kind of things I do, and I'm really interested in journalism because of where it can take you and what it can allow you to do. So I'm going to ask you can either unmute or you can put into chat, whichever is easiest for you. I want you to tell me this. What does a journalist do?
Actually, I think a journalist will experience life, enjoy life, and write.
Yeah, well, that's definitely one way of putting it. I'm going to give you an answer that's very similar to that, Leonan, and but similar. Anyone else want to try anything else?
I think a journalist is someone who write out the experience they had, which reflects their perspective to the world.
Maybe there's an element of that, definitely. Maybe there's but actually we try and keep our perspective out of journalism as much as possible. If you're doing the kind of writing I do, which is quite often walking up a hill, finding out about butterflies, sometimes my perspective is important, but mostly a journalist's opinion is not important. I tell my students I'm not interested in their opinion, but I do want them to go and find things out. Anyone else want to try a slightly different? Yeah, go for it, Dan.
I assume that the journalist is when you live and you have the experience, you can describe and narrate the life through the world. Okay, well, look, I think we're heading in the right area. I mean, you're talking a lot about experience, and for me, the kind of journalism I do, sometimes it is about your experience, but actually mostly it's not about your experience, about other people's experiences. It's finding things out. If you were doing a story about, let's say, changes in the food market in Vietnam, your opinion and your experiences wouldn't be important, but people selling food or people buying food, whatever, I don't know what the issue might be, but they are the people whose experiences are important. Yeah, they are the people whose opinions would be important for your story. So actually, as journalists, we try and keep ourselves out of the story as much as possible, because we're trying to find other people's stories and opinions and put them together, quite often to either uncover a news story or to answer a question in a feature. So what does a journalist do? I think this is a pretty good, I mean, you're all very close, but I think this is a pretty good definition. And it's simple, but it's what they do. So a journalist's job is to find things out and then tell other people about it. Yeah, simple as that. Sometimes your experience might be important, but mostly it's not. We are interested in other people's experience and other people's opinions. So as journalists, we go out and we interview people and we find things out, yeah? And when we found things out, we tell them about it. And sometimes you do that through writing, sometimes you do it through film, sometimes you do it through audio, documentary, short pieces. There are lots of ways of doing it. But it doesn't matter where you work, a journalist's job really is the same, to go and find things out, ask questions, and then to tell their readers or their audience all about it. And here's the big thing. You might think, all my students turn up and they write stories, and at the beginning, I quite often have to say to them, why would anyone read this? And probably most of you, I'm guessing, probably like me, you find a lot of your news stories on the phone. That's where news comes from. It's on the phone. And a lot of that content is free. Just because content is free, it doesn't mean people will read it, okay? And this is the big problem, is getting people to read your story is the first big challenge, yeah? So this is your reader. This is your reader, let's assume. What are they saying to you? What do you think the reader is saying?
I think they are wavering between two options.
What are those options?
Yeah, I have no idea. I just think
well, sorry, what you've just said is right. It's part of it. I think, so here's what I think. This is why I think this picture is important. And it's always, when you write, whatever you write, you've got to have the reader in here. You've got to think about who is your reader. So at the moment, some of you might be at university studying journalism, or you might be thinking about wanting to be a journalist. Or even, for all of us, wherever you write, in your life, you have to think about who is going to read it. And when you are writing a piece of journalism, you should start with this understanding. This is the challenge that you face. And it's the fact that your reader doesn't know what you're talking about and doesn't care. Okay? That's where we should start. Because if we understand that that's our reader has no need to read your story. Okay? They don't have to read anything you write. So your job is to take them from I don't know and I don't care, but you've got to get them to the point where they do care, where they are interested, where they do start to understand what it is you're talking about. So I'm talking about now not finding things out, being an interviewer journalist. I'm talking about when you bring the information home, how do you communicate it to people? How do you make it important to them so that they do care? How do you give them the information so they do start to understand and care at the same time? And this is the big challenge for my students. So we are now 6 months into the course, and I am still having to bring them back to this slide to say to them, what's your story? Why should people read this? How are you trying to make people care? And we make them care through good storytelling. And good storytelling is always about people, all right? Not your opinions, but the opinions of somebody who is experiencing a problem. We go and find their story and tell their story to other people. Good storytelling, news is always about people. So that's the challenge that you face. Your reader doesn't know and doesn't care. They have no obligation to read your story, okay? So this is where you need to start. A journalist has to tell stories that make the reader care about issues of importance. So if you found something you think is important, you go and find the information, and then you have to tell the story in a way that will make them care about it. And it's a big challenge. It's not easy. So this is at the heart of the teaching that I do at Cardiff. Well, we start off with news writing, and we talk about this nose for news. It's when you think, that's a good news story. That's an interesting story my readers will want to know about. And it takes a long time to develop this nose for news. Feature writing needs a clear sense of purpose. What is your feature about? And that's what we're going to be talking about in a moment. Any form of journalism needs strong storytelling, and storytelling is always about people. It's how people are impacted by issues. Most importantly, for any journalist is the ability to spot story ideas, and that's what we're going to work on in a moment. Creativity, news sense, and coming up with ideas are all vital. So that's what we are going to start talking about today. I'm not going to talk to you about interviewing. We are going to start by thinking about our reader. Okay, who is our reader? So I'm going to start with this publication. I want to know who reads this magazine.
So I think men is about men's health probably, and people who want to pay attention to their body and build a beach body. Influencers, take care of their appearance, maybe.
Actually, that's pretty good. I think you're all in the right place. And Trang has said here, male gymmers, which I presume you mean people who go to the gym. So you're starting to get in the right place. Jean, when you talked about, men who want a beach body, I think that's absolutely it. It gets there. Quite often my students say to me, it's men, they're probably 35 years old and they live in London and they blah, blah, blah. And I say, well, but that's true of lots of different magazines. So we give our readers, our students, a different question. And we say to them, what do they need from this magazine? And I ask my students to identify 5 hopes and 5 fears that all readers share. So I'm going to ask you now, let's look at the hopes. Let's just start with hopes. What do you think some of the hopes of the students are? Who'd like to give me an idea there?
I think the reader of this magazine would hope to have a six-pack body.
Oh, perfect. Number 1, absolutely. Good. Let's start there. Have you got another? We'll do one more and then we'll go to someone else.
Yeah, and a vigorous mental health. I guess that. Good.
Okay. Good mental health and good mental health and a beach body. I like that. That sounds good. Anyone else? Something else?
They want enhance their lifestyle throughout the magazines.
Yeah, maybe they want a better lifestyle. That may be an interesting thing to think about. Anything else?
I think they want to get longevity and a great job.
Okay. Yeah, probably. I'm sure money and a long, healthy life is on there as well. That sounds good to me. Anything else you'd like to put in?
They may want to find some inspiration to gain the body like the model on the magazines.
Definitely. I think that's absolutely it. Yeah?
I think just entertain because of a attractive picture at the first page.
Yeah, so they want a bit of entertainment as well. Yeah, maybe that's definitely. I'm sure that's part of it. Yeah.
Well, they maybe want to abstain from diseases.
Yeah. Okay. So, don't we all? Yeah, okay. That sounds good. So what about the fears? We've got some hopes. What about the fears that you think might be important here?
I guess they are afraid of being old and being old-fashioned too.
Maybe, yeah, maybe as you get older, I'm sure that's part of it, isn't it? Anything else?
I think they are scared of seeing their bad habits are going to be exposed.
Maybe, yeah, maybe. Anything else?
Well, I think the fear of being unattractive.
I think that is probably right at the top of this, isn't it? This is a magazine for people with a little bit of vanity to them. So I think you're probably right, yeah. Anyone else with anything else?
Well, I think the factors that people worry when we read a magazine is this is some magazine that is suitable for certain groups of people, for example, age or gender. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's the kind of demographics. You know, which age, which gender. And what I try and say to my students, and indeed all of my writers when I work with people, is don't worry too much about age, gender, and things like that. With a magazine like this, try and think about needs and hopes and fears. Anyone want to try anything else? One last fear you think people are worried about?
Well, for models, they may scared of lose job.
Maybe. I don't think this is just for models, but maybe. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you now, okay? A little bit of honesty. I'm a man in my 50s, and when you get to 50, you start to worry about your stomach getting bigger, you're not looking like you used to look, maybe going bald. You worry about all of those things as well, not being as fit. I've got two very fit young boys who I can't keep up with anymore. So maybe these are some of the things, you know, getting old, getting fat. But look, here's a little list that I quite often put together with my students. And they're all simple things. And we can say these in lots of different ways. And you've said most of these things already. So really well done. You've got a really good sense of this. What do people want? First and foremost, the guy on the cover has got big muscles, yeah? And the big thing, the big headline says, beach-ready body, doesn't it? So this is the big thing that this magazine offers is get in shape, get big muscles, all right? And of course, you talked about health, you know, whether that's I don't think it's just avoiding diseases, but it's definitely being fit and healthy. They want the admiration of their peers, and that means they want other people to look at them and go, hey, he is a good guy, yeah, he's got money, he's successful, he looks fit and healthy, wow. So part of the magazine is promising people, buy this magazine, and your friends will think you are something special. They want to be sexually successful. You know, you want a girlfriend or a boyfriend, and you want to have that. That's part of your success, isn't it? So that people look at you and go, hey, he is quite a guy. And career success goes with that as well, doesn't it? So these are some of the things that they want. These are some of the things they hope for. These are some of the things I think they are worried about. Getting old, getting fat, being out of shape. As I said, I'm a man in my 50s and I am worried about all of those things. Not being a success, whatever you think that means. And sometimes being boring. I have two boys and they always tell me I have become very boring. I can't believe it, but it's true. So these are really interesting. If we identify our readers not by their age and where they're from and their gender, those are the demographics. If instead we think about our readers with their hopes and fears, we can start to put together a really interesting collection of content. So here we go. Let's take a look at how it works. Each cover line needs to promise these things, okay? Every single cover line, all of these words on the cover are cover lines, okay? They are promises to the reader. They don't just say, here's a topic, find out about a topic. They make a promise to the reader. So this one, build a beach body, the kind of body you'll show on the beach, it promises big muscles, doesn't it? The thing that we said was their number one big hope. And of course, this guy here, the promise is read this magazine and you will like him. You'll look like him. It doesn't matter how much I read this magazine, I will never look like him. Not now. So big muscles, we promise it here. They don't want to get fat. Well, there's a promise here. Read this story and we'll show you how to eat food that doesn't make you fat. In fact, it actually stops you from being fat and makes you thinner. It promises career success. Land your dream job. It promises 6 ways to turbocharge your sex drive. Be sexually successful. There's lots of things down here that promise don't be dull. The implicit promise is you're going to look like this. Live to 120. Who said they didn't want to get old or they wanted to have a long life? You're right. And up here, online seduction. Again, another how to be sexually successful. So this is really important. When you put a story online, nobody has to read it, okay? If the reader looks at that story and thinks, this isn't interesting, there's no value for me, they won't read it, okay? So your first job as a journalist, if you're coming up with ideas, you've got to really understand your readers and say, that's what my reader is going to be interested in. And a good way, all the magazines that I've worked for have always been special interest magazines like this, okay? But the thinking still works for broadcast, for newspaper. You always have to think about your readers. Who are your readers? What do they want? What are they going to be interested in? So look, we've got some hopes and fears. Who else can come up with a cover line? What other stories do you think? Would you put this into chat? Because I'd like you to do this. Everyone have a quick tap away and then I will read out some of the answers on chat. So please give me in chat a cover line that you think would work well on Men's Health magazine, and I will read them out so we will see them on the film. Oh, love it, love it. There's a good one. There's a good line. I will read these out in just a moment. Let's have a couple more. Oh, nice. Okay. Trang, I'm good at you've said, is your weight soaring like gas price? There's a nice line. How can we turn that not into a question, but a promise? Maybe that's the line at the top. What do we promise underneath? So, excuse my pronunciation of names. I'm sure I haven't got this right. Lu Chan says, wanna fit? Which I think you mean, do you want to get fit? Which of course is the promise of the whole magazine. I think we have to promise a bit more than that. Maybe here are 10 ways to get fit before you get up for breakfast. 10 things you have to do every day before breakfast to get really fit. New says, be in your 20s forever. Now that is a great promise, okay? That's a really good promise. And I would love to read that story. If it really promises me useful things, that would be fantastic. Chang says, is your weight soaring like a gas price? We need a promise underneath that. So maybe here are 10 tips to keep your weight down while the gas prices rise. Forever 21, says Tang. And again, that's a good, here are 5 ways to make sure you're always under 21. Jan says, ways to your dream body. Always a good idea to put a number. 7 ways to your dream body. You'll find that on the cover. How to be a muscular man. Great. Okay, there's a bit of advice. Be attractive in 20 minutes. Love it. That's a great one. It's a good one because it suggests that you've got some secret tips and we can do this in a short space of time. And also you've got your next partner never knows this secret. Well, that's a cracking one. The word secret is always good on the cover because it suggests you've got information other people haven't got. 5 best ways to get a 6-figure job. Excellent. That's brilliant. 10 things you need to know to be like Arnold. I presume that's Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's a good one. 7 secrets to win her heart. Love it, love it. 5 ways to be swiped right on Tinder. Brilliant, brilliant. Physical attractiveness, an achievable goal. Brilliant. Hey, you lot are really good at this. That's absolutely fantastic. Love it. So this is how it works. All right, all of those things. Oh, secrets to have healthy, attractive and vigorous body. Whoa, love it. So you've all promised the reader something, haven't you? I can see the value in each of those stories. You've got to remember, I don't know how you buy magazines in Vietnam, but in Britain, you go into a shop, there's a big wall of magazines and people look at them and sometimes they've got £5 in their pocket and they have to think, am I going to spend this money? Am I going to spend this money on a sandwich to eat, or should I buy this magazine? So if they're going to buy the magazine has to promise them something really good. And all of your cover lines are really excellent because they all promise something really good. Love it. Men's Health, the reason I use it is because it is very, very good at doing this. It's been very successful in America and in the UK. And it has a cover formula. Basically, every issue is the same issue. Sometimes they are almost exactly the same issue. Can you see this? Six-pack abs, six-pack abs, six-pack abs. Dress for more sex, dress for more sex, dress. These are different issues. Gain muscle, lose pounds, gain muscle, lose pounds. Even the big numbers they use on the front, they always use a big, complicated number. 1,293 ways to do something. 1,293. So Men's Health is a brilliant magazine because it understands its readers. It knows exactly what its readers want and it delivers that exactly. And if you want to work for a magazine like this, you've got to think this way. You've got to understand your readers and really think about what it is they want. Now, I've launched a number of magazines. These are two of mine. Outdoor Fitness, I launched about 12 years ago. And it's a bit like Men's Health, but actually it was made for men in their 40s in Britain. So older men in Britain who were out doing lots of cycling. My cover model kept his top on, for example. He's very famous. He's a famous sports person in Britain. But we did the same thing. We thought about our reader. What were their hopes and fears? And I also launched this magazine called Trail Running. This has stopped publishing. It lasted about 10 years. This has lasted 12, 13 years and it's still going really strong. And both of these magazines, we did exactly this. Well, who's your reader? What are their hopes? What are their fears? And launching a magazine is a really interesting thing to do. And I am going to say, now it is your turn. I'm now going to give you a magazine launch that you are going to come up with the cover lines for the first magazine, okay? So, I'm going to ask you to come up with a magazine for international students heading to the UK. So first of all, I would like you to think about your students. Let's have a little look. Here's our cover. This is the picture we want to use on the cover. It's a magazine for international students heading to the UK to study for 1 to 3 years. I'd like you to imagine you are the reader of this magazine. You're heading to the UK to study for 1 to 3 years. I'd like you to think about some of the hopes and fears you might have. And again, I think probably the quickest way to do this is, can you put these into chat and I will read them out afterwards? Can you give me the things that they want here? What do they want to achieve? Hope of making good friends. Brilliant. That's a really good one. I'm coming to the UK. What do I want? I want to find new friends. Maybe you should all start this. I'm the reader. I want to something. And new says adapt to a new culture. So maybe that's I want to adapt to a new culture, or I want to discover a new culture. Everyone start your answer with I want blah. Let's see if that helps. Here we go. I'm only going to read the ones that start I want. I want to travel around the EU. Brilliant. That's a good one. Yeah, I'm going to go to this country. I want to make friends. I want to have good accommodation that meets my budget. I want to travel as well. I want to travel around the EU and Britain. So, and we also got here, let's see what else. I want to be a permanent resident after graduation. Right, that's really interesting, isn't it? Lots of my students from India and China as well at the moment, they want to have they want to stay in Britain for a bit after to kind of increase things. That's a really good one. I want to make the most of my learning experience. That's a really good one. I want to have a lucrative job. Cha, do you mean while they're studying, or do you mean after studying?
I mean after studying.
Oh, okay, so you want to be academically successful so that afterwards you can get a good job, okay? I want to know about British cuisine. That is the most unexpected answer ever. Vietnamese food is amazing. Everyone comes to Britain and they say, oh, British food is awful. So maybe. I want to overcome homesickness. Ah, that's really interesting. Maybe I'm worried about being homesick. Maybe we should put that on our fears bracket. I want to develop my career in a foreign country. I want to know a bit about the culture. I want to develop other practical skills. Hey, that's really good. That's really good. I'd now like you to, let's think about the fears. Let's do this the other side. I am worried about blah. Tell me what you think an international student might be worried about coming to the UK. And I will read out any that start, I am worried about. We've already mentioned one, haven't we? Ah, I am worried about tuition fees. What you mean is I'm worried about not having enough money as well as the tuition fees. I'm worried about culture shock. Absolutely. I am worried about the weather. You are right to be worried about the weather. It's not always bad. I'm worried about being depressed. That's a really good one, I think. People's mental health, and we could do something really interesting there. I'm worried about COVID-19. Yeah, I mean, that is a real issue, isn't it? I'm worried about cultural differences. I'm worried about not having friends. Great. These are brilliant. These are all really important things, okay? Anyone, anything else? Nobody's worried about the academic side. Nobody's worried about the language. You all sound like your English language is excellent. I am worried about the social evils there. I wonder what that might be. We're normally very nice people. We do our best to be very nice people. I'm worried about not understanding the language. I think that for a lot of people, that can be a real worry for my students. I'm worried about transport. Joanne, what's the worry there?
So I think there are a lot of differences between transportation in Vietnam and in Britain. So about the subway, kind of like that. So I'm thinking about it. Yeah, the weather and transportation are my main concerns.
Oh, that's really interesting. It's not difficult here, I promise you. But when I used to work for Lonely Planet, I'd go to lots of different countries. And it's interesting you say that because I always got very worried at the subway. I never knew how to buy my ticket or where to put the ticket in. And it's little things like that are really important, aren't they? What else have we got? I'm worried about missing home. I think that's a big one. Homesickness is probably a massive one, isn't it? So if we could promise something there, that would be good. I'm worried about school assignments. Yeah, academic side. Listen, this is brilliant. This is really good. So listen, we've got some good hopes and fears. We've identified some of those. I was going to write them on here, but this is a PDF. We've thought about our hopes and fears. You can see them in the chat. You can think about what might work. I would now like you to turn those into cover lines on your magazine. And I'd like to make sure that each one makes sense for your reader and promises your reader something, okay? So don't just give me a topic, make a promise to the reader. What's the equivalent of get a beach body? Okay, what would work for our reader? So I use those hopes and fears, and I would now like you to type in, and I will read out the good ones. What are the cover lines that you think would work well? So who's going to give me we've got a really good one. Make your journey in the UK unforgettable. Brilliant. 10, this is a great one. 10 Vietnamese restaurants to ease your homesickness. That's really good. That's a lovely one, isn't it? Because if you're feeling homesick, for a lot of my students, often food is a really important part of that. And you're saying to your reader, hey, we're going to tell you where to find food. 100% scholarship international student. Dan, can you turn that into a promise? What can we, that is just a thing. What could we promise the reader? You don't need to do a lot, you just need to slightly retype it to make it a promise. Who else could promise something else? What about travel? What could we promise our reader about travel or culture or making friends or... how to become a permanent resident in under 4 years. Well, that might be interesting. Remember that our readers haven't yet got to the UK, or maybe they're just in the UK. So that might be useful. Anything else? But that's a really good one because it is a real motivation for a number of people is to stay a bit longer. Anything else? Chances to travel across Britain? Yeah, you might say 10 places you must visit in Britain. That might be a better promise, mightn't it? Here are the 10 places we think you should visit in Britain. We like it here in the UK, and you will too. Okay, you will, I'm going to make you. 10 best homestays for international students. Okay, there's a nice promise, isn't it? Nice places to stay. That addresses the accommodation. Let UK become your second home. What does that mean? How are we going to do that? What are you going to tell the student? How to overcome assignment deadline in the UK's uni. Yeah, how to deal with stress maybe. Be familiar with your second home. Is this cultural secrets you need to know? Or is it about how to get on the tube and the underground? Top scholarships for international students in the UK. Yeah, that's a good one, isn't it? We are going to tell you which are the top scholarships. So rather than just saying 100% scholarship, we've got a feature that will tell you about the top. I think that's going to go on our cover, definitely. 10 ways to start a conversation without being awkward. That is brilliant. If you're worried about things, that's a really nice one, isn't it? To get people interested. Start small talk in 3 easy steps. Fantastic. Similar one, and that's good, isn't it? It addresses worried about making friends. And this is the thing. This works well. Let's have 3 more from you. Communities every freshman needs to know. Yeah, maybe that could work well, couldn't it? I don't quite know what the communities is, but it could work well. Immerse in the most beautiful things in the UK. Yeah, we could tell people secret things you've got to go and find out about. 10 ways to be a real UKer. Yeah, 10 ways to kind of look, and behave like people in Britain. That might be interesting. How to acclimatise in the UK. That's a good promise. Find your interests in a brand new country. Listen, there are some fantastic cover lines there. They are really good. And the best ones of those make a real promise to the reader. 10 ways to is often a good way of making that promise. They make a promise that addresses one of the hopes and fears that we talked about. And that's really important as well. So you've done a brilliant job. We've started to get a sense. Yeah. For all of you, please. Yeah, you did a great job. I think that's brilliant. And this is, you may look at this and think, oh, that was a bit silly. But this is exactly how people launch magazines and how they think about their covers. So if anyone here ever wants to write for a magazine or ever wants to be the editor of a magazine, this is exactly how you have to think. All about your reader. Everything you do has to do something for the reader. And I think you've done a brilliant job there. And I think in 45 minutes, that was absolutely excellent. That's my book, Matt Swaine. Go and see if it's in your library. But that's my email. Please feel free to drop me an email anytime. I'd love to hear from you. Tell me what you thought. Or if you've got any questions, or if you want to know about being a journalist or what it's like in the UK, you're very welcome to drop me an email anytime. And you'll find me on the Cardiff University website as well. Does anyone have any questions?
Anyone have a question? Please raise your hand. Lian, please.
Actually, I feel that the session today is so interesting, but I have a problem, and I hope that I can receive some suggestions from you. Yeah, I just launched a project about feminism, and feminism, many people are not interested in this theme, and even they hate it because they misunderstand the subject. So do you have any suggestion that to push attraction from community?
Well, first of all, would you please drop me an email, because I've got one of my students is doing their dissertation on a feminist podcast in China, and she would love to hear from you. Okay, so please drop me an email and I'll put you in touch with my student. But here's the thing, stories are about people, okay? Everybody is interested in stories. Here would be my advice, would be to go and talk to some people. Go and think about how you tell the stories of people who are feminists trying to change things, or women, or people impacted by gender issues. If you go and tell their stories, all right, find good stories and tell other people those stories, that would be my advice to you. Don't try and tell people what to think about feminism. Don't tell people you have to, especially the academic side of it. Go and find the woman who's trying to get, gender pay in her business so that everyone gets paid the same. Go and find the woman who's trying to deal with issues around childcare and balance in childcare. Go and find the women who are experiencing problems so that you can tell your readers about those problems. Because good storytelling, and it's in this book, okay? If your university library has it, but I'm really happy to talk about it if you send me an email and show me some examples. Good stories are what makes good journalism. And good stories are always about people. And I'm really happy to come back again and to do a session on storytelling and to give you an example of how you bring stories to the top of people's stories to the top of your feature or to the top of your news story. Who have you spoken to who might be a campaigner or somebody who's had a problem with issues around feminism? Can you tell me one story?
Yes, I just cover many aspects of life. Yeah, to raise awareness, community about gender equality.
Yeah.
And we have not had any true story that, yeah.
You've got my email. Would you go and find a story, drop me an email, and let's have a chat about how that might work, okay?
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Any other questions?
Yes, so thank you for your fascinating and really useful lesson. I have a question for you, is that in the beginning of your lesson, you mentioned that a journalist need to practice their nose for news. So how can they practice it?
Again, go and find a book like this. It doesn't have to be this book, but go and find one. And it will talk to you about news. News is something that affects people. It has some impact on your audience. It's important to them. If food prices go up, it means I've got less money to spend. So that story is important to me because it's going to have an impact on my life. If there's an explosion at the end of my road, I want to know about it because it's going to impact my life, isn't it? It's going to have an impact on my family and the way we live. If there's a fire or something here. News is about people. Journalism is about people. Good stories are about people. So developing a nose for news, the only way to do it is to go and do it. Is to go and write for a local paper, write for a local website, write for a student website. That's the only way to do it, is to practice, practice, practice. But before you practice, you can read a lot about it as well. If you go onto the internet now and type, what is news? You can read about an academic definition of what news is. And then you can go and read news stories, real published stories. And you can say, why have they published this story? So you don't need to start writing. You can just go out and read lots of news stories. And you're all very lucky people because your English is astonishingly good. And you can read stories in Vietnamese, stories in English from Australia, from the UK, from America. I'm sure you're all very clever people. You probably speak other languages as well. So it means that you can go and read stories from lots of different places. And as you read thinking, why is this a news story? Why is it important for the readers? What does it mean for the readers of this publication? that is a really good way to develop your sense of what news is. But to really get a nose for news, you have to write stories as well. Make sense? You've got to practice.
Anyone have one more urgent question that they want to ask?
Well, can you tell me some tips to attract young readers?
Oh, well, so are you writing for young readers? Who are you writing for?
Well, actually, I'm an English teacher, and I, usually write some sharing posts for my students on Facebook. Yeah, and I wonder how to attract them. Yeah.
Do you know what? That's really interesting, because one of my students is an English teacher here in the UK, and yesterday she had to. She might be applying for a website that's for TEFL teaching. Teaching English as a foreign language. How do you attract young people? Well, number one, I don't know how your readers interact with their phone in Vietnam, but if they use WhatsApp or Facebook, or I don't know what they use, but I would go where they are. Put your stories where they are looking would be my first piece of advice. But my other piece of advice would be to think about what we've done today. What do your students want? And I'm sure for a lot of them, what they want is to become fluent in English, to be more confident in using their English, to find ways of practicing their English. I'm trying to learn French at the moment, and those are things that are all really important to me as I practice my French. So I would do exactly what we've done today and think about your readers' hopes, certainly their hopes. What is it they want? Because if you can then promise them 10 easy ways to boost your fluency, or 7 ways to practice your English with native speakers, those are really good promises, aren't they? Or how to build your fluency in 15 minutes a day. I'm using Duolingo to practice my French. Secrets like that, little tips and bits of advice, promises, real promises to your reader, I think would be brilliant.
Well, thank you very much.
I just want to say thank you very much for having me. I think what a lovely group of people. Thank you for your contribution. All of them really smart, really switched on, and I have really enjoyed this morning. I've never been to Vietnam, but hopefully one of these days I get to come and visit, and you are all lovely ambassadors for your country. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. Và các bạn khán giả ơi, các bạn học sinh ơi, chúng ta sẽ nghỉ giải lao một xíu, và trong lúc nghỉ giải lao thì chúng ta sẽ cùng thưởng thức một video về campus của trường đại học Cardiff của xứ Wales. Và ngay sau đó thì chúng ta sẽ quay trở lại với phần Q&A với thầy Matt đến từ trường Cardiff.
I chose to study at Cardiff University, one, because of the program. They had invested a lot in the program, but also because I just really liked the vibe of the campus, and I thought I could see myself living here, so that was a really important factor for me.
Just the quality of education, just the facilities that they provide, as well as just the staff, the teaching staff, and how friendly everyone is.
Because Cardiff is one of the Russell Group universities, and which looks very impressive on my CV.
Cardiff University have really good international student support as well, and a good nightlife as well as a good quality of teacher.
I decided I was going to study in the UK. I asked my friends that have been in the UK for a while, and they advised me to choose Cardiff because they call it a peaceful city. It lives up to the hype, so it's been good so far, and I'm really enjoying every moment of it.
When I came to visit, I fell in love with the city. There's so much to do. There's so many different types of people here.
I think what I'm enjoying most about my studies so far is probably the social environment at Cardiff University. I have really great roommates, I have a lot of really great friends. I'm part of a lot of societies and clubs, and it really makes the whole academic part just so much more enjoyable.
Seeing how Cardiff University is a very diverse university with a lot of international students, I got to interact with people from all over the continent, people that I would have never been able to meet. So that is definitely very exciting for me.
What I enjoy most about my course is how passionate all the lecturers are about what they do.
The professors and how they're engaging with us, just putting in practical work with the theoretical part is very interesting for me.
Most of them are researchers, and they've been studying a certain topic their entire lives. And so when they teach it to you, they know what they're talking about, and they care that you care.
If you're still wondering if you should join Cardiff University, don't worry about it. It's going to be the best decision you make.
Chào mừng tất cả khán giả của IFO Classroom mùa số 4 Live from Wales. Bảo Trân rất vui khi được tiếp nối phần lớp học vừa rồi, khi mà lớp phó Như Huyền đã dẫn dắt một cái lớp học cực kỳ là thú vị với trường Cardiff University. Và ngay bây giờ với chúng ta, trong phần 2 này về Q&A, chúng ta sẽ cùng trò chuyện thân mật hơn và gần gũi hơn, không chỉ để hiểu thêm về bộ môn International Journalism vừa mới học xong, mà còn về cả trường Đại học University of Cardiff nữa. Và có mặt của chúng ta hôm nay, chúng ta vẫn có thầy Matt Swaine, trưởng bộ môn báo chí quốc tế trường Đại học Cardiff của Wales. Chúng ta có cô Megan Cooper, đại diện đến từ trường Cardiff, cũng sẽ giúp chúng ta giải đáp những câu hỏi về trường, cũng như là chị Gia Hòa là một người đã tốt nghiệp thạc sĩ ngành ngôn ngữ học ứng dụng tại Đại học Cardiff. Ms. Megan Cooper, would you like to say a few words to our audiences?
Yeah, of course. So thank you everybody so much for being here today. We're really excited to take your questions about Cardiff University. We're a great university. We are actually the only member of the elite Russell Group University in Wales. We're currently ranked 151st in the world, and many of our courses are ranked in the top 5 and top 10 in the UK. So it'd be a great opportunity to have a chat to you and take all of your questions.
Thank you so much, Ms. Megan, for being here with us today. And chị Gia Hòa, em rất là vui khi mà có chị được có mặt trong chương trình ngày hôm nay. Chị có thể giới thiệu một chút về bản thân với khán giả của mình được không ạ?
Cảm ơn bạn. Cũng xin chào mọi người. Thì mình đã tốt nghiệp ngành thạc sĩ ngôn ngữ học ứng dụng ở trường Cardiff vào cuối năm 2019, đầu năm 2020. Sau đó thì mình quay lại Việt Nam để làm việc tiếp. Hy vọng là nếu các bạn có những câu hỏi nào liên quan tới trường cũng như là liên quan tới ngành học hay là về ngôn ngữ nói chung thì chúng ta có thể giải đáp trong ngày hôm nay, hoặc là sẽ có catch up, follow up sau đó. Cảm ơn mọi người.
Em cảm ơn chị Hòa rất là nhiều. Các bạn khán giả đã xem chương trình livestream, hãy đừng quên là các bạn cũng có thể tham gia đặt câu hỏi trực tiếp với những khách mời của chúng ta ngay tại đây bằng cách là bình luận ở trong phần livestream của chúng ta. Và trước khi các câu hỏi của mọi người đổ về thì mình sẽ cùng trò chuyện một chút với các bạn học sinh đang có mặt ở đây. Chúng ta có Cương Trí này, Xuân Trang và Liên An. Xin chào các bạn. Không biết là buổi học vừa rồi với lớp phó Như Huyền và thầy Matt thì nếu mà được dùng 2 từ bằng tiếng Anh để mô tả về buổi học vừa rồi thì các bạn sẽ chọn những từ gì nhỉ? Mình sẽ hỏi Liên An trước nha.
Actually, I think 2 words are not enough. But the 2 most suitable words I want to share with you guys are knowledgeable and amazing. Yeah, it's so great.
Liên An bảo là Liên An thấy lớp học vừa rồi rất là nhiều kiến thức và rất là cực kỳ hay. Còn Cương Trí thì sao? Bạn cảm thấy như thế nào nếu mà chỉ được dùng 2 từ duy nhất?
Well, I would say interesting and valuable. I've been taught how to write a captivating headline and what should be taken into consideration to attract the audience. Yeah, and that's my opinion of the lesson with Mr. Matt Swaine. Yeah.
Cảm ơn Cương Trí và hy vọng là các bạn khán giả cũng như là các bạn học sinh ở trong lớp đã học được rất là nhiều kiến thức mới trong lớp học vừa rồi. Và mình cảm giác như là Xuân Trang cũng đang gật gù, giống như là có câu hỏi nhỉ? Xuân Trang có câu hỏi dành cho thầy Matt không?
Dạ không ạ. Em cũng đồng ý với ý kiến của hai anh chị là lớp học của thầy rất là bổ ích. Dạ.
Cảm ơn Xuân Trang. Và trong buổi học vừa rồi thì chúng ta đã học được rất là nhiều kiến thức, giống như vừa nãy Cương Trí vừa nói là không chỉ là làm như thế nào để viết một cái headline, một cái tít thật là hay, thật là thu hút người đọc, mà có mấy cách làm như thế nào để mà bố trí bố cục một cái bìa báo như thế nào để nó thật sự là
thu hút mắt, eye catching ấy. Thì trong rất là nhiều những kiến thức như vậy, các bạn cảm thấy cái điều nào là cái điều mà các bạn wow nhất và các bạn muốn hỏi thầy Matt thêm nhất? Có bạn nào có hỏi ngay lập tức không nhỉ? Mời Xuân Trang đi.
Cảm ơn chị. So hi Matt, it's glad to see you here. So in our previous lesson, you mentioned about the nose for news, and we all know that it plays a significant role in developing future ideas. Yes. So I'm wondering, were there any time it just didn't perform well and let to no potential idea coming out, and how would you deal with it? Thank you.
Do you mean when I was being a writer and an editor, struggling to find things? Is that what you mean? Yeah.
Yes. All the influx of ideas inside you just stuck.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. So it's that's a really interesting question, and I think a really important thing to think about is ideas are everywhere, stories are everywhere, and the more you get into the habit of this, the more it becomes like a muscle memory that you kind of, you work out how to do things, and you get the kind of the right approach to it. You get in the habit of doing it, and it doesn't become difficult. And actually, I was talking to my students yesterday, trying to get them to think about how they develop a habit of looking for stories, identifying stories, and it's just sort of in the habit of developing feature ideas. So it's something you have to practice really hard. You can't, it isn't something that you are born with and people can do or you can't do. It's something you can train yourself to do. You can practice and get in the habit of it. Of course, there are times when it's been a struggle to think about what's the right thing to do. But working as a journalist, often it's not about working. You may think it's about being by yourself and writing a story by yourself, but most of the time it's about working with a group of people. And one of the things this lesson today is it's a really small part of what a journalist is about, and it's very specific to the kind of magazines I worked on. It's all about understanding other people. And the more you understand other people, the better you'll be at pretty much every job out there. But the more you learn to work with other people, the stronger your feature ideas, news sense becomes. So yes, it's been a struggle, but if you work with a good group of people and you work well as a team, there is always a way of solving it. So if those of you who are working on magazines or maybe student papers or anything else, it's using that team around you is really important. I hope that answers your question a bit.
Okay, thank you. It's really informative for me.
Oh, thank you.
And if I might add, I totally second what you just said, Matt. And I think it's also about keeping a curiosity on the world. So you have to be genuinely curious about certain subjects or certain topics in order to really dive into it and spend time and really learn that, and so that you can spread it to other people. Like you mentioned earlier in the lecture, that audiences, you don't know if they care about your topic or if they know about your topic. You have to be really you share genuine curiosity with them so that they would be interested in what you're interested in too, right?
Yeah, that's a brilliant way of putting it. I completely agree with that. And yes, absolutely. You put it very well.
Thank you, Matt. Vừa rồi thì bạn Xuân Trang vừa mới hỏi thầy Matt là như thế nào để có thể nghĩ được ra những cái headline hay, những cái feature news hay nhất dành cho những cái tờ báo, những cái tập san của mình. Và thầy Matt bảo là đây không phải là một cái thói quen ngày một ngày hai mà chúng ta phải tập được, mà nó giống như là khi mà mình đi tập gym ấy, mình sẽ phải tập hàng ngày để cái cơ mình nó giữ ở đó. Và không chỉ là một khi mình đã lên cơ rồi mình không tập nữa thì nó sẽ vẫn còn ở đó, mình vẫn phải tiếp tục tập để mình giữ cái cơ ở đấy. Tức là khi mà mình muốn viết báo, mình muốn viết những cái tin bài thì mình phải thực sự ở ngoài đó, mình hiểu thế giới, mình hiểu góc nhìn của mọi người từ rất là nhiều khía cạnh khác nhau, và mình luyện tập cái thói quen như thế nào để mà nhìn qua nhiều những cái lăng kính khác nhau, tập cho mình một cái thói quen tò mò và thực sự chia sẻ cái niềm đam mê, cái sự tò mò đó của mình với người đọc. Thì đó sẽ là cái cách mà chúng ta có thể chạm được với người đọc hơn. Bên cạnh đó thì khi mà làm báo chí, chúng ta không phải làm một mình mà chúng ta còn phải làm với những người xung quanh nữa, và teamwork là một điều rất là quan trọng. So we also have a question for chị Gia Hòa. Chị Gia Hòa ơi, thì là một người ở trong ngành ngôn ngữ học thì chị có thấy là những điều mà thầy Matt vừa mới chia sẻ về cách viết trong báo chí nó có giống với những nội dung mà chị được học trên trường hay không? Và theo chị thì ngôn ngữ báo chí nó sẽ khác biệt với ngôn ngữ bình thường như thế nào ạ?
Cảm ơn câu hỏi của bạn. Mình trả lời câu hỏi này bằng tiếng Việt hay tiếng Anh nhỉ?
Tiếng Việt luôn cũng được ạ.
Thì trong bài giảng hồi nãy của thầy Matt có một cái slide ở cuối, một cái phần activity cho các bạn mà mình thấy rất là ấn tượng, rất là interesting, đó là hai cái cột nói về hopes and fears. Thì mình biết là nó quan trọng trong mảng báo chí nhưng mà nó cũng rất là quan trọng trong mảng ngôn ngữ học nữa. Và khi mà mình làm bài luận văn tốt nghiệp thì mình cũng có thu thập những cái data đến từ news sources. Và khi phân tích những cái data như vậy thì cái mà mình tập trung vào là evaluative language, hay là language mà thể hiện evaluation, thể hiện sự đánh giá của người viết về cái đối tượng mà họ đang viết. Thì những cái mà mình thấy nổi bật từ cái data mà mình tìm được đó là những cái loại ngôn ngữ thuộc về 4 cái nhóm, như là emotivity, tức là thể hiện cái sự đánh giá approval hay disapproval của người viết đối với một cái sự vật, hiện tượng hay một đối tượng nào đó. Reliability, cái mức độ mà chúng ta chắc chắn về những cái gì mình viết, ví dụ như là that might be the case or it is absolutely the case. Hoặc là importance, một nhóm từ khác thể hiện về importance. Và một nhóm cuối cùng cũng rất là đặc biệt, đó là expectedness, là khi mình so sánh những cái gì đang diễn ra với cái expectation của mình hoặc là của xã hội. Thì lúc mà thầy đặt câu hỏi cho các bạn nói về hopes and fears, ví dụ I'm worried about something, và sau đó đưa ra một cái promise cho người đọc là họ sẽ biết được cái thông tin gì đó sau khi mà họ đọc cái bài này. Thì mình cảm thấy đó là một cái rất thú vị, không phải chỉ về mặt nội dung mà cả về mặt ngôn từ. Vì đôi khi có những cái từ ngữ đối với người này thì nó sẽ là hope, nhưng mà đối với người khác thì nó sẽ là fear. Và khi mà phân tích ngôn từ thì tại vì phân tích ngôn từ là cái mảng mà mình tập trung vào lúc mà mình học discourse analysis, thì khi phân tích ngôn từ chúng ta cũng thấy được là những cái cách mà chúng ta thể hiện hopes and fears nó sẽ rất là đa dạng, nó sẽ không có một cái mẫu, một cái cấu trúc nào mà để cứ nhìn thấy nó là mình biết là người ta đang being hopeful, hay là cứ nhìn thấy nó là mình khẳng định being fearful, mà tất cả sẽ phụ thuộc vào context hết. Mình phải đặt cái câu từ đó vào trong cái bài báo đó, mà đọc những cái gì người viết đã viết ở đằng trước và những cái gì người viết đã viết ở đằng sau thì mới biết được là cái evaluation, cái sự đánh giá của cái người viết được thể hiện ở đây là như thế nào. Thì một điều cuối cùng mà mình nghĩ là mình có thể chia sẻ được đó là cái topic mà mình làm lúc đó là về health. Thì mọi người cũng biết là đối với Covid cũng như là trước khi có Covid thì cũng rất là nhiều cái health condition, nhiều cái chủ đề về sức khỏe là một cái mảng rất lớn trong báo chí. Thì chúng ta sẽ phải đặt ra câu hỏi là vậy thì khi mình viết về những cái chủ đề như vậy thì hopes and fears đó bao nhiêu sẽ là đủ, khi nào nó sẽ là quá ít hay khi nào nó sẽ là quá nhiều. Và nên mình nghĩ đó là một cái câu hỏi mà các bạn nào mà quan tâm đến journalism, quan tâm đến báo chí cũng sẽ đến một thời điểm nào đó cũng sẽ gặp và sẽ phải tìm ra cái câu trả lời cho bản thân mình.
Em rất là cực kỳ thích cái câu trả lời của chị Hòa vừa rồi, tại vì
cảm ơn bạn.
em cảm giác như nếu mà cái câu trả lời vừa rồi mà mình nói bằng tiếng Anh để cho thầy Matt cũng có thể nghe được thì nó sẽ gây ra được một cái lớp học thật là dài nữa, chúng ta phải nói cả ngày về cái vấn đề này. Tự nhiên khi mà chị nói thì em lại nghĩ đến cái cách mà khi mà cùng một cái tin đấy nhưng mình nhìn từ hai góc nhìn khác nhau, nó sẽ trở thành hai câu chuyện hoàn toàn khác nhau. Ví dụ như là khi bạn tham gia cuộc phẫu thuật này thì 70% bạn sẽ sống, cũng có thể bạn bạn sẽ có 30% các phẫu thuật không thành công, thì hai cái đấy nó sẽ hoàn toàn có thể một cái đưa cho hy vọng, một cái đưa cho nỗi sợ. Hopes and fear, it plays with your mind. And it's just so interesting, and how they play it in propaganda, in news and everything like that. They could really persuade you. So Matt, just to recap a little bit earlier, so we have a very interesting question to Miss Hoa right here about so she graduated in
Applied linguistics. Yeah.
Applied linguistics, and how that would be different if it's applied into the media, into journalism, other than like just normal communications. And we were talking about she was very intrigued by your last slide about hopes and fears. Some certain language would trigger hopes and certain language trigger fears, and it was just so interesting. So there's different perspective that you could look at a certain news, and it will bring different sentiments to the reader. and how the writer choose to approach that subject is up to them. Would they like to alarm the reader on the cautions or the dangers of that subject, or would they want to bring hopes like, oh, at the end of the tunnel there will be some light? So how do you think,
especially when it comes to health?
Yes. What do you think about that? Like, how do we strike a balance?
Well, okay, so it's really interesting. The reason I use this hopes and fears approach is because I was introduced to it when I was a working journalist by a very good friend of mine, and it really helps people to think about their reader, not in terms of how old they are and where they live and big topics. It encourages them to think about, what does the reader need from us? What can we do that is of value to them? And we were talking earlier about news stories, and when you struggle to find good news, and news should always be connected to the reader. We should be aware of what impact it has, because if I could tell you my bike has been stolen, well, that's big news for me. It's not big news for you because you don't care, but I care. So it's, news should have an impact on people, and we should always think about this. We're not just giving people information, we're thinking about why it's relevant to their lives. And and I think you're talking about this need to think about the tone that we strike with people. And I just try and tell my students, this is nothing difficult or complex. It's exactly the same as walking into a coffee shop or a tea house, sitting down with some friends and saying, have you heard about this? Now, we don't need to tell our friends, this is really scary and the world's going to end because of this. But we can say to them, this really interesting thing has been discovered. And this is why I think it's interesting for you. And so it's all about, we're very good at doing this when we have conversations with people. If you meet your grandmother, you're very respectful. If you meet friends, you're a little bit more casual and you have a bit more fun. We just do this naturally all the time. But the moment we start doing this with a typewriter, people seem to freeze and they become something else, So this is about being natural and about striking a balance that feels right here, being authentic and thinking, this is how I want to talk to people. This is how I want to communicate with people. So I always tell my students, imagine yourself sitting in a British pub or a coffee house or a tea shop, wherever it is, and having that conversation with friends, because that's the tone you want to strike. And we don't want to scare people. We don't want to worry people. We want to give them information that they need, that's useful, that help them live their lives, help them to make decisions about their lives. And really, fundamentally, we talk about public interest in the world of news. And public interest is about giving people information that allows them to make decisions, allows them to be part of a democratic working country, and allows them to make those, the information they need to live their lives and make decisions. So that's what it's about. It's never about trying to scare or worry or, get people into things. It's giving people useful information. We're there to serve the needs of our readers. And that's the switch that I try and get my students to make. They turn up, they're very good at writing essays, but to learn to write news, it's about how can I be useful to other people? Does that make sense? I don't want to tell you about myself. I want to give you things that are going to be useful to you as a reader or as somebody, an audience or listener, wherever you're working.
That's a very nice way to put it. So think about how you would chat with your friend. Let's say, so I want to counter this and just double advocating right here. Say, if you have to report like a factual news, like the example I was just giving to Ms. Hoa earlier about, say, So if you enter this operation, there are 70% of a success and you will live a healthy life. But you could also say it like, oh, there's a 30% chance of the operation fail and you might not survive. So it's both facts and it's both useful to the reader and it's both interesting to the one that's reading it. But when do we choose to use which way to phrase it? Because it could really bring different, like you said earlier, hopes and fear.
So yeah, again, that's a decision you've got to make. You're right. I mean, clearly not everything is pub conversations or coffee shop conversations. And some of the things we do need to be a little bit more formal about. Yeah, where do you start your story is really important. We do, and I'd love to come back sometime and talk to you about this, but we do a big session in terms of storytelling. How do you get people interested in stories? There is one answer, and it's people, because stories are always about people. So we might start, Tram, your illustration, we might start there with somebody who's been through that operation and somebody who can tell us about what it was like. We might start with the personal. You can always make news stories. Data isn't very good for kind of hooking people to a story. It's important in the story, but at the top, let's hear from the person who was affected by that situation, the person who's experienced that problem. Because we started off talking about our readers. They don't know and they don't care. The best way to get them to care and to start to understand is to give them a participant, somebody who's experienced that issue, and to start telling the story through them. So storytelling becomes a really important part of what we do. Understanding what your readers need and then understanding how to make your stories engaging to people.
Indeed. Sorry if we get a little bit sidetracked, because I also study communications and mass communications, and I'm also working in communications. I do write some articles sometimes.
Tram, I can tell from what you're saying that you do, don't you? Yeah, absolutely.
So like, just to get back to where we were talking about, I'm just gonna translate this very quickly for our audiences in Vietnamese, and then we'll come back to you with another question. Vừa rồi thì chúng ta vừa mới có một cái cuộc nói chuyện cực kỳ là thú vị đối với cá nhân Bảo Trâm, tại vì mình cũng là một người đang làm trong truyền thông, và những cái câu chuyện, cách mà mình dẫn chuyện và cách mà mình đưa tin bài như thế nào là một cách, nó là cả một cái sự phải khéo léo, làm sao vừa đủ để nó thu hút, hấp dẫn người đọc, nhưng nó vẫn phải rất là bám sát với sự thật. Và khi mà cả chị Hòa và mình vừa mới nói về cách là như thế nào để mà mình lựa lời, mình nói ra cái câu đó, mình viết ra cái dòng chữ đó nó hợp lý nhất, thì thầy Matt bảo là có thể dễ dàng nhất là mình tưởng tượng mình đang nói chuyện với một người bạn, như thế nào để mình kể với người bạn của mình về một cái thứ mình vừa mới gặp mà nó thú vị nhất đối với người nghe, đối với người đọc. Và mình phải đặt người đọc ở trọng tâm, và từ đó mình sẽ xoay ra. Mình không bao giờ nên bắt đầu một câu chuyện bằng những số liệu như là 30%, 70% hay như thế nào đó. Mình sẽ bắt đầu câu chuyện bằng một người đã trải nghiệm qua những cái câu chuyện đó và họ cảm nhận như thế nào, thì giữa người với người chúng ta có thể đồng cảm với nhau dễ hơn, và những cái câu chuyện đó nó dễ chạm đến người đọc tốt hơn. Và ngay tiếp theo đây thì hình như Cương Trí có một của mình vừa mới nhận được một câu hỏi từ bạn Quân ở trên fanpage của chúng ta. Bạn ấy hỏi là như thế nào có thể tránh được những cái buồng vang thông tin, tức là khi mà mình ở trên Facebook, ở trên các cái mạng xã hội, chúng ta gặp những cái tin tức ấy, khi chúng ta đọc những cái tin nhất định thì sau đấy AI, trí tuệ nhân tạo sẽ tự đặt ra cho chúng ta những cái tip tiếp theo. Đây sẽ là những cái bài bạn sẽ muốn đọc tiếp theo, thì khi đó mình sẽ cuốn vào một cái vòng xoay, sẽ bị vào một cái buồng vang âm thanh, mình sẽ chỉ nghe những cái thông tin từ cái phía đó thôi, những cái thứ mà mình đã có hứng thú sẵn, và chúng ta sẽ không biết được là ngoài kia còn có những cái thông tin gì nữa. Và thời sự hoặc là tin tức dạo này có thể nào dễ dàng bị như thế nào, bị bóp méo hay không? So Matt, we have a very, very interesting question right related to that from Kwon, on one of our audiences. He asked, how do we keep ourselves away from echo chamber, which has been such a buzzword these days? And do you think that news nowadays can be manipulated?
Golly. Okay, well, there's some big questions there. Can news be manipulated? Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. And I think you need to think very hard about how we all need to think very hard about how we consume news and how we sense check where this source is coming from. Is this trustworthy? Are there any indications on here that this is not a trustworthy piece of news? Who's telling me this? Why do they want me to think this? These are all important things that we have to get increasingly, all of us have to think about, because a lot of this comes to us through social media, and it's very easy to get caught up in things and like and retweet things that other people want you to like and retweet. So yes, we have to take I think all of us need to do a lot of thinking about that. And I'm certainly no expert in that area, and I spend a lot of time trying to think hard about it and understand what that's all about. How do we get out of echo chambers? God, that's an even better question, isn't it? I think number one, here's one thing I've done. There's my mobile phone. I don't know what the standard platform in Vietnam is, but I have taken Twitter off my mobile phone. Number one, because I don't think it was very good for me. I was doing this, scrolling through awful news all the time. But number two, because I do recognize it is an echo chamber. Sometimes it's telling me things I think, I want to hear. We have this thing, confirmation bias, and I want news that confirms my view of the world. And that's part of the reason I've taken it off. So I've got rid of Twitter. I try not to consume my news through there, although there are times I go back to it on my computer because there are interesting things on there. But the other thing is to read widely, to challenge yourself to read widely. If there are certain newspapers I read every day, but I should try and challenge myself more to read things from outside of my sphere and try and listen to things from other parts of the world. If anyone has a good English language Vietnamese website that I should look at, I would be really interested to see it. Please send it through, because I think we should all get in the habit of reading sources from other parts of the world, challenging our worldview, challenging where we sit and how we take that information in, and going and listening to more people. The more people you listen to, the less time you spend in a bubble. More people. So listening is really important. We spend a lot of time doing this, broadcasting out. This is what I think. But actually listening is really, really important. And I think we would all be in a better place if we spent more time doing that. I encourage my students to read widely. If you want to be a good journalist, obviously you've got to write or you've got to create content, but actually the first thing you can do is consume. Read, watch documentaries, watch TV programs, get in the habit of doing that and really think about the content that's coming across.
Consume wisely and purposely. Right?
Wise and purposeful. Thank you. That's good to know.
Thank you so much, Matt. I just couldn't agree more with you.
Well, look, we're doing well then in that case, because everything you say I completely agree with. So it's brilliant.
Yes. Vừa rồi thì thầy Matt vừa mới trả lời câu hỏi của bạn Quân là thực sự là rất là khó khi mà chúng ta tất cả mọi thứ đang ở trên mạng xã hội và rất là dễ bị cuốn vào những cái guồng. Khi mà chúng ta đã bắt đầu vào một cái cuộc nói chuyện nào đó với một số người bạn nào đó thì chúng ta sẽ chỉ thích nói với những người đó thôi, tại vì có một cái gọi là confirmation bias, tức là chúng ta sẽ muốn nghe những ý kiến nó đồng thuận với mình. Như thế thì nó sẽ cảm thấy dễ chịu hơn, mình sẽ cảm thấy là mình được nghe, mình được thấu hiểu, và cứ như vậy thì mình sẽ cuốn vào cái guồng đó, mình sẽ chỉ nghe những cái tin tức đó, sẽ chỉ nghe những cái ý kiến đó, sẽ chỉ hiểu những người đó thôi. Và chúng ta sẽ phải luyện cho bản thân mình cái thói quen là không chỉ đọc nhiều tin tức mà phải đọc từ nhiều nguồn tin tức, sẽ phải tự tìm hiểu nguồn của mình, sẽ phải thực sự là khôn ngoan và nghiên cứu kỹ càng về cách mà chúng ta tiếp nhận thông tin, không chỉ ở một nguồn nhất định, mà chúng ta hãy cố gắng mở rộng thế giới quan của mình ra bằng rất là nhiều cách khác nhau. Thầy Matt luôn luôn khuyên học sinh của mình như vậy, và hy vọng là các bạn khán giả của IFO cũng có thể luyện tập được những cái thói quen đó, không chỉ qua việc đọc sách này, còn có thể là xem phim, nghe nhạc, xem phim tài liệu, hoặc là tham gia những khóa học, nói chuyện với những người mới. Đó cũng là cách để chúng ta phải tiếp cận nhiều hơn với những kiến thức bên ngoài kia. Và ngay sau đây chúng ta có một câu hỏi từ bạn Cương Trí, phải không nhỉ? Cương Trí, em có một câu hỏi dành cho chị Gia Hòa đúng không?
Dạ, em xin chào chị Gia Hòa. Thì em cũng là một thầy giáo dạy tiếng Anh. thì chị có bí kíp gì từ trường đại học Cardiff cho em với tư cách là một tiền bối đi trước được không chị? Ý em là trường Cardiff đã mang đến những cái giá trị to lớn như thế nào trong con đường trở thành giáo viên của chị ạ? Dạ em xin cảm ơn.
Cảm ơn câu hỏi của bạn. Đầu tiên có 2 keywords trong câu hỏi của bạn mà mình muốn đề cập trước. Thứ nhất là có bí kíp. Thì mình không bí kíp sẽ là một khái niệm mà tùy mỗi người định nghĩa như thế nào. Thì mình không nghĩ là mình sẽ có một bí kíp gì đặc biệt. Nhưng mà sau đó thì bạn có đề cập tới cái khái niệm thứ hai, đó là có những cái ảnh hưởng, những cái giá trị to lớn nào mà cái khóa học mang lại. Thì mình nghĩ cái đó sẽ gần hơn với cái khái niệm bí kíp theo từ cái quan điểm của mình. Thì giá trị to lớn mà ngay từ đầu mình tìm kiếm ở trường và cũng may mắn là cái mình tìm kiếm cũng là cái mình được nhận luôn. Thì đó chính là sự đa dạng. Thì khi chúng ta học ngôn ngữ thì chúng ta sẽ học những cái cơ bản trong hệ thống phổ thông mà chúng ta biết là về từ vựng, về ngữ pháp. Chúng ta sẽ học các kỹ năng nghe nói đọc viết. Nhưng mà đó chỉ là cái bề mặt thôi. Chúng ta đang tìm cách để biết được người ta trong cái ngôn ngữ có cái gì, tức là mình đang tìm cách hiểu được cái ngôn ngữ đó được mô tả như thế nào, được cấu tạo như thế nào. Và khi mình đi sâu hơn nữa thì mình sẽ đặt ra những cái câu hỏi khác, không phải chỉ về cấu tạo mà sẽ về cái động lực, cái lý do vì sao người ta chọn lựa cái cách dùng từ này mà không phải cách dùng từ khác. Tất nhiên chúng ta biết là không phải ai thì cũng suy nghĩ thật là kỹ trước khi mà mình nói ra một cái vấn đề gì đó. Nhưng mà chắc chắn là ai khi nói ra một cái điều gì đó thì cũng đều có một cái lý do nào đó ở đằng sau. Có thể họ không nghĩ về cái lý do đó, nhưng mà chắc chắn là có một lý do. Có thể là họ rất quen thuộc với cái cách diễn đạt đó từ cái môi trường sống. Có thể là do họ đã có những cái kinh nghiệm làm việc ở những nơi này nơi kia, nên họ thu nạp những cái cách diễn đạt đó. Hoặc có thể là do họ đã nghiên cứu hay là đã tìm hiểu một cái lĩnh vực nào đó rất chuyên sâu nên cái cách dùng từ của họ khác. Thì đó là cái mà mình muốn biết khi mà mình theo đuổi cái ngành về Applied Linguistics. Như vậy thì cái câu hỏi mà mình muốn đặt ra nhiều hơn đó là why và how. Why and how people say what they say. Thì đó cũng là cái mà mình nhận được ở trường Cardiff, và cũng là lý do mình apply vào trường ngay từ đầu, vì cái cấu trúc, cái chương trình học của trường sẽ giúp giới thiệu cho chúng ta rất là nhiều mảng khác nhau. Nếu mình muốn nghiên cứu về forensic linguistics, ví dụ như là ngôn ngữ học nhưng mà được áp dụng vào bên ngành luật, những cái liên quan tới court cases, những cái liên quan tới linguistic evidence in the court, thì những cái đó rất là thú vị. Cũng như là bên thương mại thì chắc là các bạn ở Việt Nam cũng đã được tiếp xúc nhiều ngôn ngữ về business English. Và ngoài ra cũng có media về truyền thông, giống như là nãy giờ chúng ta đã nói về journalism, sự giao thoa giữa ngôn ngữ và truyền thông. Và ngoài ra còn có về chính trị nữa. Đặc biệt là chính trị thì mình thấy là nhiều cái vấn đề khác nhau diễn ra trên thế giới, như hiện tại thì có cả vấn đề về chiến tranh. Thì những vấn đề lớn như vậy, hay là những cái giá trị cốt lõi của con người về giới tính, về sức khỏe vân vân, thì tất cả những cái đó chúng ta nói như thế nào, diễn đạt như thế nào, và đằng sau cái cách diễn đạt đó là những cái nguyên nhân gì. Thì đó là những cái mà mình thú vị và cũng là cảm thấy thú vị, và cũng là những cái mà mình nhận được từ trường, từ khóa học ở trường. Còn về việc nó ảnh hưởng như thế nào đến cái việc giảng dạy của mình, thì mình nghĩ là những cái ảnh hưởng đó nó sẽ tùy người. Ví dụ như với mình, khi mình tiếp xúc với đối tượng người học chủ yếu là những bạn sinh viên và những người đã đi làm rồi, thì họ rất là hứng thú với các vấn đề về xã hội. Tức là học không phải chỉ để viết được một câu hay một đoạn nghe giống như ai đó, hay copy style của một người nào đó, mà họ muốn thể hiện được cái critical thinking của mình từ những cái mà họ nói và họ viết. Cho nên những cái mà mình học được từ trường thì nó có thể áp dụng trực tiếp vào những cái bài học như vậy, để giúp cho người học có thể question những cái cách dùng từ của họ. Có thể mình dùng từ này vì hồi đó giáo viên chỉ mình là mình nên dùng từ này, nhưng mà bây giờ mình sẽ cần phải suy nghĩ xem là ngoài cái từ này ra, ngoài cái cách diễn đạt này ra thì còn có những cách nào khác nữa, và nó sẽ khác nhau như thế nào về mặt effects, ví dụ như khi mình viết báo hay khi mình gửi email, tin nhắn cho đồng nghiệp vân vân. Và tất nhiên là nếu như bạn dạy ở những trình độ khác, những bé nhỏ hơn hay là học trung học, teenagers rồi này kia, thì nó sẽ có những cái key takeaways khác, mình sẽ có những cái approach phù hợp hơn cho từng cái lứa tuổi. Nhưng mà nói chung cái keyword ở đây mình muốn nhấn mạnh đó là về diversity. Chúng ta sẽ thấy được nhiều mặt của ngôn ngữ, chứ không phải chỉ là phân biệt đúng hay sai, không phải chỉ là nói đúng hay nói sai, mà sẽ là nói như thế nào và vì sao lại nói như vậy.
Em cảm ơn chị Hòa rất là nhiều, một câu trả lời cực kỳ đi vào từng chi tiết và giúp cho các bạn có thể hiểu rõ hơn về cách áp dụng những cái không chỉ là lý thuyết này mà còn nó rất là gần gũi cuộc sống hàng ngày nữa. Hi Megan, so you've been with us for this Q&A, and we've had quite a heated chat about not only just journalism but also about the classroom in Wales and Cardiff University. So one of our students right here, Sun Chang, has a question for you.
So, hi Megan.
Hello.
Hi. So personally, I'm really curious about the School of International Journalism at Cardiff University, and I'm wondering, are there any opportunities for us to work or do internship at the organization or affiliate of our school?
Yeah, of course, that's a really, really good question. Cardiff University really understand the importance of employability and placement opportunities for our students. And that's across all of our schools. So lots of our programs that we have at Cardiff have placement opportunities. You mentioned being particularly interested in the School of Journalism, Media and Culture. So we do have courses within that school that have placement opportunities, particularly at a postgraduate level as well. So we have courses like broadcast journalism and news journalism that have integrated placements. So students have the opportunity to put what they've learned in the classroom into practice. And it's really important as well to mention our facilities within this school. So all of our students have access to state-of-the-art, brand new facilities in the School of Journalism. So they can access professional quality equipment such as recorders, digital cameras, digital video cameras. So there's lots of practical elements to the courses as well. And then across all of the university, as I mentioned, placements and work experience is really, really important. And it's something that we embed throughout our courses. There are lots of opportunities for students to do courses that actually have a 1 year, we call it a sandwich year in the UK. So you will have maybe 2 years if it's an undergraduate degree in university and academia. Then your 3rd year could be a placement year. So you'll go out and work in industry. And then you can come back then for your 4th year and finish off your studies. As well as at undergraduate level, we have postgraduate opportunities for placement years where students can do 1 year in university and then a 2nd year again working in industry. And we also have lots and lots of support for international students. So we've got a careers service at the university that all of our students can access as much as they need to. And within that team, we've also got a designated international careers advisor. And it's her job to specifically help our international students. So any help that you might need with placements, with CVs, with interview techniques or job searching, there's lots and lots of support there for students. So really good question. So thank you for your question.
Could I share a tiny bit of my experience with the internship that I got thanks to Cardiff University? So it might be relevant here. Although I did not study at the School of Journalism, but I did spend 7 months at a cancer charity in Wales. And it was one of the most meaningful experiences I've ever had in my entire life. So I was an intern in the marketing and communications team. And learning how to tell stories, especially stories from patients, was one of the most valuable lessons that I got from that experience. And what Matt just mentioned here about how you connect to people and how you present them as a not just the subject of your story, but as not real interest, to show real interest in their lives and in the meaning of their stories. So that I think that if we want to get a job, right, and that's one thing, but doing volunteering work and trying to go out there and meet people, and it's also one of the greatest experience you can get when you attend Cardiff University. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Vừa rồi thì bạn Xuân Trang mới hỏi cô Megan là bạn ấy rất là tò mò về ngành International Journalism của trường, và bạn muốn biết là liệu ở trường thì có cơ hội làm việc hay thực tập ở các tổ chức có liên kết với trường đại học Cardiff hay không. Thì cô Megan vừa trả lời là không chỉ là có những cơ hội thực tập bình thường, mà ở trong trường còn có sẵn những cái resources cho các bạn để các bạn có thể hoàn toàn tự nâng cao những kỹ năng của mình trong việc báo chí, từ những việc như là có thể đi chụp ảnh này, có thể đi phỏng vấn mọi người các thứ. Và đặc biệt là khi mà đi du học ở Anh, ở Wales, ở Cardiff thì mọi người sẽ được, ví dụ học xong 2 năm đầu tiên thì sẽ năm thứ 3 mọi người có thể được đi thực tập tròn 1 năm luôn. Và sau khi đã có những cái trải nghiệm bên ngoài rồi, thực tế như vậy rồi, sẽ được quay lại và học và kết thúc với năm cuối cùng, năm thứ 4 tại trường. Mình nghĩ đấy là một trong những cái trải nghiệm cực kỳ là quý giá, tại vì mình học phải đi đôi với hành, và đó là một cái cách cực kỳ hay để chúng ta có thể áp dụng những kiến thức chúng ta học và thực sự biến những cái thứ mình học, cái tấm bằng của mình nó mang thật là nhiều giá trị hơn. Và chị Hòa cũng chia sẻ thêm là ngoài những cái cơ hội thực tập thì đối với chị, một trong những cái kỷ niệm và những cái giá trị lớn nhất mà chị có được từ trường Cardiff đó chính là cái được tiếp xúc với thế giới bên ngoài, không chỉ qua thực tập mà còn là tình nguyện. Và đó là cái cách mà chị ấy được mở mang và được hiểu hơn về cách trò chuyện, cách kể những cái câu chuyện, hiểu hơn về những người xung quanh của mình và cách làm sao để có thể kể được những câu chuyện nó thực sự là nó hay nhất và cuốn hút nhất. Và bởi vì là chương trình của chúng ta có một cái giới hạn thời gian, cho nên là mặc dù có rất là nhiều câu hỏi của các bạn khán giả từ khắp cả nước đổ về thì chúng ta không thể nào mà có thể giải đáp được hết. Nhưng mà nếu các bạn khán giả vẫn còn những câu hỏi thì đừng ngại ngần có thể nhắn tin cho IELTS Face Off fanpage của chúng mình, hoặc cũng có thể liên hệ với trường Cardiff University. Chúng mình sẽ để thông tin liên lạc ở phía dưới phần comment nha. Và hãy cùng gửi những lời cảm ơn tới những khách mời của chúng ta đã có mặt ngày hôm nay. Ms. Megan, thank you so much for your insights. How do you feel interacting or just watching the lecture and seeing our Vietnamese students?
I think it's been amazing. I found all the discussions really, really interesting. I wish I studied journalism now in university. I think I would have learned a lot from that. The conversations have been really, really interesting, and it sounds like the students as well today have really enjoyed it. You've had really, really great questions to us, so it's been great to be involved in it.
Thank you so much, Megan, and I'm very glad that you enjoyed the lecture, and I see Matt is also smiling. And chị Hoa ơi, là một cựu sinh viên đã từng đi học ở Wales thì chị có những lời động viên nào, những lời khuyên nào dành cho các bạn học sinh đang nhắm tới xứ Wales không? Có cách nào để các bạn có thể tự tin đi du học hoặc là tìm những học bổng phù hợp nhất với bản thân mình?
Cảm ơn câu hỏi của bạn. Nếu mà nói về thông điệp cho các bạn sinh viên hay học sinh đang nghĩ đến xứ Wales thì mình nghĩ điều quan trọng là có thể là các bạn sẽ so sánh những nơi khác ở trên thế giới với Wales. Tuy nhiên nếu như mình thật sự muốn hiểu và muốn trải nghiệm một cái nơi nào đó thì mình phải đến. Nếu mình đọc và mình xem video và mình cảm thấy là nơi này nơi kia như thế nào đó thì mình nghĩ là sẽ rất khó để có thể hình dung được thật sự là những cái giá trị mà mình có thể nhận được là gì. Nên nếu kể cả khi mình có nói ở đây là các bạn sẽ nhận được những giá trị này kia thì các bạn cũng rất khó để có thể hình dung được nó như thế nào. Nên trước hết là mình nghĩ là nếu mình muốn thật sự cảm nhận được cái giá trị thì mình sẽ phải đến đó. Điều đó cũng có nghĩa là mình sẽ là cái người quyết định xem cái trải nghiệm học tập của mình nó mang lại cái giá trị gì cho mình. Cái nơi mà mình đến không phải là cái yếu tố duy nhất quyết định. Không phải là nếu mình đến đây thì chắc chắn trải nghiệm của mình sẽ tốt hơn, hay là đến chỗ khác thì trải nghiệm của mình sẽ tệ hơn. Quan trọng là khi mình đã đến đó rồi thì mình có một cái kế hoạch ở trong đầu là mình sẽ muốn tạo ra cho bản thân mình những cái trải nghiệm như thế nào. Ví dụ như mình sẽ muốn thực tập những công việc như thế nào, mình sẽ muốn đi đến những thành phố nào, hay là nếu mình học về journalism thì mình đã có những cái topic nào ở trong đầu và những cái trải nghiệm nào sẽ giúp mình hiểu biết thêm về những cái chủ đề đó để mình có thể viết tốt hơn về chủ đề đó chẳng hạn. Thì mình nghĩ cái điều quan trọng nhất là mình sẽ quyết định xem là cái điều mà mình mong muốn khi mình đến đó học là gì, và mình suy nghĩ những cái cách nào để mình có thể đạt được những cái giá trị đó.
Em cảm ơn chị Nhị Hòa rất là nhiều. And Matt, I absolutely loved the session today. It hits all the right spots at everything, and I think it's very intriguing and very interesting. And this could go on for hours and hours. But since our program cannot go on for that long, we really appreciate you spending your time with us, and we really hope that we could see you again sometime in IELTS Face Off or in Vietnam if you want to visit our country.
Oh, well, yes to both of those. And I do want to say, just sort of echo what Megan was saying, that what a really nice group of people, super smart. I mean, like really super smart questions. Absolute pleasure to meet you all, to hear what you have to say. This is really a small part of what we do on the course, but this is something that we do run with our students, and we keep coming back to it. I think, as I said in the session, also something that I use a lot with professional journalists and magazine teams. It may seem a bit silly and the idea is a bit throwaway, but there's really important stuff at the heart of all of that. Hopefully you all saw my emails on there. If anyone has any questions at any point about Cardiff University, or even just you're doing some journalism and you'd like to share it with us and show us what you're up to, we'd love to hear from you. So please do email anytime, and hope to meet you all at some point.
Great. Thank you so much, Matt, Megan, and chị Hòa. Cảm ơn tất cả các bạn khán giả đã cùng ở lại với Bảo Trâm và IFO Classroom mùa 4. Chúng ta đã vừa đi qua một lớp học cực kỳ thú vị, và mình hy vọng là mọi người cũng đã cảm thấy hứng thú hơn với bộ môn International Journalism và với trường đại học Cardiff University. Nếu mọi người có bất kỳ câu hỏi gì, đừng ngại ngần, hãy nhắn tin cho IFO hoặc là email với trường Cardiff. Mọi người sẽ luôn luôn sẵn sàng để giải đáp những thắc mắc của mọi người. Cảm ơn mọi người đã xem đến những giờ phút cuối cùng này, và đừng quên là chúng ta sẽ còn gặp nhau vào 8 giờ tối thứ 3 tuần sau. Ngay bây giờ chúng ta hãy cùng xem một video ngắn về để kết thúc chương trình, và hẹn gặp lại mọi người vào thứ 3 tuần sau nha. Bye bye. Have a good
Bye.
one,
Thank you everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Are we all good? Are we all good to?
Yeah.
Thank you.
That was